It was a very self-indulgent movie for us. We were like making an R-rated movie for 13-year-olds.
That is, your feet are bare. Put your boots on.
They're filthy. I'm having them exfoliated.
No time for exfoliation.
I haven't shown it to my kids yet, but I've heard that it plays very well still with 13-year-olds. So my son has one more year to go, then he can join the club. Tropic Thunder. Honestly, it had been a year since I'd even been on a real movie set. Like, everything I had done was just sort of like with friends, and so that was like movie star camp. I mean, it's on this movie that's massive, there's a million actors I had seen, and had watched and had never met. So it just was sort of like trying to stay alive and feel like I could hold my own with all of these like super talented, successful people. And yeah, that was like probably the most insane time I've had on anything. I mean, we were to go from like waiting tables a year earlier, and then the next year I'm in Kauai with Stiller and Robert Downey Jr. and Jack Black and all these guys. It was mind-blowing.
Amy, what's the dealie, dude? Are we gonna blow this tree line or what? Tuck and Kim got the blue balls here. I'm gonna let them squirt before it go.
Play it through, still rolling.
Dieter, can he hear me? That's C4, dipshit. Put that back.
A lot of these like effects guys too, when you meet them on the set, like they do have personalities, and I would watch the guys that I had been around with in this last year and just took cues and notes from some of them. The opening scene of that movie, it took like almost 3 weeks to shoot. So for like 3 weeks, I would sit up in this tower and watch everything that was happening, not sure if they were going to get to my stuff that day or not.
Neither of these jets are about to crest this ridge line. I got about 200 pounds of shit your pants. I need to know if we're ready to go.
And then meanwhile, Ben Stiller, his character in that scene has no arms. His arms have been blown off. So he's like directing, 500 people and incoming helicopters that are exploding, and he has like no arms. He's like screaming to move things here, take things there. Even just the way he would handle the studio was pretty funny. It's like, they would get dailies back each day, and I remember the studio would like give him notes like, we need more wide shots, or this needs to be funnier, it's too dark. And Ben would just take those notes and then give them to Bill Hader's character to just say in the movie to be mocked and ridiculed. And then I think the notes slowed down after that. Yeah.
Sit, cock, that's the signal. Go.
Six.
I remember I had like an earwig in when I was sitting up that tower, because if they had to sell any direction or anything to me so I could know what's going on. And I guess during one of the takes they had like left Downey's like mic on, and so I'm sitting up there and I'm like, oh shit, I can hear what he's saying, and he's like talking to people, and he was in character the whole time. And then I even like watched him like walk back to his trailer and saw it from down there, and he was talking to himself.
Here they come!
No! Stop tailgating me, you pasty teabag! Can I make a pee-pee?
I'm gonna go drain the snake. I'm gonna drain the snake. He was like made up a song about how he was gonna go piss in character for no one else's benefit except for his own. This is the end.
Crumhouse is dead. Michael Cera's dead.
Yes, and Michael Cera's gone. It's not a total loss, huh?
Jesus, damn it.
Michael Cera's dead.
It's not like that. That's not funny, man.
It seemed like it was going to be a lot of fun, and this is the end. I mean, the concept of it seemed awesome, and once again, it was like taking a comedy and then mixing it with a bigger genre, which to me just felt like it could be a lot of fun, and maybe it would break through. Jonathan Watson was the AD, the assistant director on that movie, and he's been the AD on all of like Eastbound and Vice Principals, and he's directed episodes of Gemstones. We've worked with him a lot, and Seth and Evan have as well. And I remember he called me before I got there and was like, "Ooh, you better come prepared. They're going hard at each other." And so you kind of knew what the atmosphere was going to be, that it was like, oh, nothing's off the table. Everybody's going hard at each other. It was kind of fun, though.
Y'all cool?
It's Channing Tatum.
That's Channing Tatum, dude. What the fuck?
Channing fucking Tatum. I found him wandering on the freeway. I collected him, made him my bitch.
I had that very memorable scene with Channing Tatum, and that was the very first time I met him, is when we filmed that. I was like in my trailer, sort of like going over my lines with like a skull on my head, like all in blood. And then Channing, I think, came running into my trailer in like, football pads or whatever he was wearing or not wearing in that scene, and tackled me. And so that was when I first met him. And I was like, okay, we'll get along. He'll be fine. This will be easy enough.
Danny, we're friends. You can't eat us.
I'd love to catch up, but we're fucking starving, so
Let's see.
The Foot Fist Way.
Let's go over the plan real quick, okay? You're gonna start things off with your little floor pad, get everybody hooked. Then I'm gonna step up and seal the deal.
Who was Fred Simmons inspired by? You know, I think he was kind of a mashup of just like, you know, types of dudes that Jody and I had maybe like been around growing up in the South. You know, Jody was actually a black belt in Taekwondo. He had his own karate school in high school, so he had definitely been around these types of people. And I took karate for a good part of my youth. I think when I was like 12 years old, I was kicking so much ass that my teacher put me in my sensei put me in the advanced class. And so then I would just go to karate and just get my ass kicked by like 16 and 17-year-olds. So after about a month of that, I quit karate and I put those days behind me. And then you know, when Jody had this idea and we were kind of like thinking about what to do, it was kind of fun to be able to tap back into some of those personalities or egos that, you know, even stuck out to us, even being that young.
You guys ever had sex?
Y'all getting to know Mike pretty good back here? Why don't you go ahead and buckle up?
No, thank you.
Okay, you guys buckle up.
We shot that movie on Super 16. You know, it wasn't on digital. It was on film. So like every frame counted, every take mattered. We only had one camera. You couldn't play anything back, and so you were really trying to capture something very spontaneous. And at that time period, you know, we didn't really know a lot of actors. We didn't know any actors really. We didn't have a lot of exposure to the industry, and there was something exciting about taking kids who didn't know anything about acting either and just kind of seeing what people did naturally. And you know, we auditioned and went through the same process that any movie would, and we're kind of looking for kids that were more like personalities as opposed to like trying to be a character.
Will you ever betray me, Julio?
No, sir.
I know you won't, because you're loyal. You're one of my allies. Now why aren't you out there teaching class like I asked you to?
They were able to express themselves and kind of be a character in their natural personality. And so that was sort of what we leaned into. It was all just sort of a labor of love and pieced together, and everyone just sort of brought as much of their A game or tried to learn how to form an A game, I guess, while we made it.
I will never misuse Taekwondo. I will be a champion of freedom and justice. I will always be righteous and help build a more peaceful world.
It got to Sundance, so Jody and I instantly thought, like, we've done it, we've made it. Like, I think Jody actually went back into his job and, like, told everyone to fuck off, that he was, like, quitting, and it was done. And then we got to Sundance, and I think it premiered at, like, midnight. And, you know, we're all in this theater, our parents are there, everyone involved, everyone's excited to see this thing. And about 15 minutes into the movie, like half the theater gets up and leaves. And we're like, oh God, what does that mean? Is it that bad? And we got home and were hopeful that it would like find somebody who could do something with it. And then that's when we got a call that Will Ferrell and Adam McKay were interested in it. They had just started this company, Gary Sanchez, and they were looking to acquire this as like one of their first releases. And so I think it's sort of like, you know, we had suffered this little blow to our egos, then instantly we were filled with our egos again. It's like, yes, Will Ferrell and Adam McKay want this. We are as awesome as we think we are. Eastbound and Down.
I'm the man who has the ball. I'm the man who can throw it faster than fuck. So that is why I am better than everyone in the world. Kiss my ass and suck my dick, everyone.
You've reached the end of cassette.
We shot The Foot Fist Way in basically, I think it was almost like 17 days, you know, and so we had never written anything like that before with that sort of formula where you were sort of challenging the audience to like the main character, and that was like part of what the story was. And I think we had such a good time doing that we just wanted to kind of do it again, but we didn't necessarily want to just go make another movie. It felt like if we did another movie in 90 minutes, the story would inevitably have the same sort of beats that Foot Fist had. So the idea of like opening that character up and figuring out how they would operate in something a little bit longer, that was kind of where he came from, is we wanted to kind of do what we were doing with Foot Fist, but kind of put it on a different canvas. And so that was why we kind of made him be around kids. It was all just sort of elements of things that we enjoyed doing on Foot Fist. And I think as we started cracking the character, we realized that the show was like bigger than just a substitute teacher, you know, and that's when we kind of got really ambitious. I think originally we even were going to call the show like physical education. It was just going to be about a gym teacher.
I'm Kenny Powers. I'll be your new PE teacher until Coach Booth's back is fixed. Yeah, I'm famous, la-di-da, big fucking deal.
The more we started to dissect Kenny and kind of figure out what where he came from and what he was capable of and all the bad stuff he'd done, it just made us feel like the school was just one stop on this journey, that his whole story wasn't about being a PE teacher. And so we didn't really find that out, though, until we started writing the show.
Well, look at that. That is Toby. A Sony.
So there's a Japanese corporation, April. It's PS3. It's PlayStation.
What an appropriate gift for a baby.
Every season of that show was a blast. I mean, it really sort of marked us growing up, you know, like when we sold Eastbound, you know, all of us were just like, we were all pretty young. No one was married. No one had kids. Like, we were all just couldn't really believe it was happening. And then every season we'd come back, somebody else was married, somebody else had a kid. Everyone started going out less and less. I don't know. We kind of like went on Kenny's journey a little bit of self-discovery and growth. So for each of them, there was something different. I think the season in Puerto Rico, the second season, was probably the wildest time we had filming anything. I mean, it was pretty insane.
Honestly, I can't even believe you would look at me and the word gringo would even come to mind.
The rules were kind of like, even just shooting down in Puerto Rico, it was all different than what we had experienced back in North Carolina. It was kind of wild.
Who am I speaking to here?
Ashley Schaefer BMW. Damn, fine to meet you.
I take it you own this place.
I sure do. That's why my name's on the goddamn building.
I thought Ashley Schaefer was gonna be a woman.
I love women. I take that as a compliment.
Take it as you will.
And all the stuff with Will Ferrell was always a blast. Like, that stuff was always just like you were on another planet. That stuff was so much fun. I think when Kenny Powers shows up to Shane's funeral and with the boombox and plays music, I can just remember hiding behind the tree getting ready to do it, and just that fact that we were in a real cemetery and it was, people really were like graveside. It really just, the weight of how lame this was, of what Kenny was doing, really was making me laugh. It was a lot of fun. Hot Rod.
And that is how it's done.
After Will and Adam picked up the Foot Fist Way, so the DVD of it started making its way like around Hollywood. We started getting calls from just different people who were watching it and wanted to meet. And Sandberg and Akiva and Yorma, they I guess they had seen it too. They reached out to me and I put myself on tape. And instantly, as I met those guys, I just instantly loved them, and I loved that they were buddies and they were creating something together and been working together, and it reminded me of like what I was trying to do with my group of friends. And yeah, after meeting them, I just really hoped that I would get cast in it because I just wanted to get to know all of them better. I admired what they were up to, and they just felt like they were kindred spirits.
Is everything ready?
Now?
No, not
Blow
now.
it now!
They weren't making comedies at the expense of any of the filmmaking. They were inspired by big movies, and they were like trying to take what they liked about that and then inject it into their comedy, which I felt like was fun.
One of you is getting your dick hole smashed.
Oh, I'm freaking pumped! I've been drinking green tea all goddamn day!
That was improvised. I think in the script was I just get out of the car and then give him a beat down. And so everything in there just sort of, I was just channeling the demon. So drinking green tea, going to church.
God, I go to church every goddamn Sunday.
Stealing his hat.
This is my hat now. This is totally my hat.
All of that stuff was just straight from the dome. Pineapple Express.
I'm gonna flex and bust out of here.
Trapped. It's not happening, Red.
Okay, all right, okay, I'll talk.
Seth sat with me a lot during that time, and we would just chat and talk about life, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. That whole shoot was a blast.
High five, seriously. I know this sounds weird, but can we be best friends? Just us, for real?
I think we should all be best friends.
We should be.
You guys are my best friends.
We shared a moment.
After they saw Foot Fist Way, that was just one of the next things they were working on. So they had asked if I'd be interested in, playing the role of Red, and I think because those guys were sort of getting to know my crew and I, that's why they decided to give Green a look. I told him that David Green's stuff in film school was actually really funny, but ever since he graduated, all of his stuff had a definite art house flair, but that he definitely has a wicked sense of humor, and no one had looked to him to tap into that yet. And I think that intrigued those guys. And when they met with David, I think they just got excited about the idea of handing something like that to him and see what he would do with it.
You gotta break the door! Are you gonna pay for it?
That fight scene was crazy. You know, we were going for it, and so everybody got injured. I think like Seth broke his hand or his finger or something, and Franco had split his forehead open. Like, that's why he has that bandana for most of the movie, sweatbands, because he had actually split his forehead open and he had a big scar there, so they put that there. And then, not to be left out, when I get hit with the bong in the back of the head, that definitely split open my skull, and I had a concussion and filmed for the rest of the day. Knew all my lines still, even with my head split open.
You okay, man? Look, I'll get you another bong, all right?
It's my cat's birthday.
Any word on the potential sequel for that one?
I would go back into that in a heartbeat. That was a lot of fun, but I don't know. Feels like maybe the time has passed. We'll see. Your Highness.
It is finally time for you to become a man. You must journey with your brother to rescue his bride.
Father, you can't be serious. If you want me to go onto a quest, then let's start with something easy, like boiling a chicken or beating off in front of a Pegasus. Elementary things.
Ben and I had come up with that idea back in college. It was like a type of movie that we feel like we hadn't seen before, and I think we were kind of at that point in our careers and we were just getting going. We were like, well, what kind of stuff do we want to make? We weren't really looking to make what other people were making. We were kind of looking for holes in the atmosphere of like, well, when I was a kid, I liked Time Bandits. There's nothing that's the equivalent of that now. And we were just trying to find those touchstones of maybe what people now might miss or might want to see. We talked Universal into buying this pitch off of us for Your Highness. We wrote the script, and it instantly became one of those things where like our brains didn't really understand movies of that size, and like we have all this crazy stuff written in there, and then the reality of like you can make it, but you have this much money to make it. And it was still a lot of money. It was more money than we ever had played around with before. At that point, David was the one who had the most experience when it came to dealing with studios and finishing movies, so it like made sense that he would come on and try to lead that. And then yeah, I mean, it was a very self-indulgent movie for us. We were like making an R-rated movie for 13-year-olds is what we would always like say. Those seemed to be the sweet spots of the movies we liked when we were kids. And yeah, it was nuts. It was, the whole thing was that they let us make a movie that weird. We shot it in Belfast, so we all like lived there for like, it was almost like 6 to 8 months. And I even remember that like that part of the deal with it was like that we would have like bad British accents, but then even like that sounded funny every time we pitch it. But then came like the first day of filming when you're looking at this all British crew and they don't know who you are and they're like wondering what they're making, and then you start sort of like mocking their accents, and it was just like, oh, what have we signed up for? What is this?
Everyone in the kingdom wants to suck your dick. No one wants to suck mine.
That was kind of the whole run with the whole thing. Was always like every day we'd like roll up on set, there'd be like a puppet, you know, trying to molest James Franco, and we're just looking at each other like, what did we decide to do with all this money? What are we doing?
Come, give me kisses.
Kiss him. Fuck no.
Pretty, please.
Kiss it on the mouth.
Vice principals.
Listen here, you. Come tomorrow, there's a brand new principal in town, and his name is Neil Gamby. And those who want to be catty little bitches, well, they can kiss their fucking jobs goodbye. That is a Gamby promise.
With vice principals, sort of the idea after coming off of Eastbound, you know, we loved the idea of working in TV, and we loved the idea that you could like stretch the story out and hit different markers than what you could hit like in a 90-minute story. But then how we sort of made Eastbound, it was sort of so centered around Kenny and his story that we really wanted to like open it up, and we wanted to explore the idea of like a buddy comedy. So even when we wrote that script, I wasn't sure which of those two characters I was going to play. I kind of felt like if I kept it gray, I would ensure that both of the characters were like written well. If I wanted to like make the mark be that I would play either one of them, I would want to be excited enough about that. So I think with it, we kind of formed those characters based off each other. It was sort of like two different people having like two different views about the way the world works and how you go about getting the things you need and what's important to each of them. And so it became just kind of very easy to create them, as you would get into scenes where there was some sort of moral dilemma, and it was like you kind of instantly knew how each one would react to it. And so I think he kind of sprung as being like part of a twin, I guess.
We ain't fucking friends, okay? This is business.
Friends? I'm not trying to be your friend.
If you're trying to make a fucking friend, we about to do a mission.
You're the one trying to make friends the most. I love Vice Principals and had an absolute blast making that. And it was awesome, really, just because that's where I got to really meet Walton and hang with him, become buds with him. And, you know, he's just one of those actors that I enjoy working with so much. I mean, we tend to like the dramatic actors who have so much talent but are like are totally fine with like making a fool of themselves at the same time. That combo works well with us, and Walton is that same way. Like, I love trying to come up with meaty material for him and watch what he'll do with it, and it will always blow any sort of expectation that we had. And yeah, he's a champ. I love working with him.
Charlestown had slaves.
Well, I'm sorry, but I don't believe in that.
You don't have to believe in it. It doesn't change the fact that slavery happened.
Bill, why are you arguing with me? I'm saying that slavery is wrong, all right? There's no reason for you to be arguing with that.
I'm not arguing with that.
Look, don't make the whole field trip about yourself. Let's keep moving, guys. Come on. Vice Principals is what brought us to Charleston for the very first time. We had shot Eastbound in Wilmington, North Carolina, and all of us are from the South, so we always enjoyed like leaving LA and coming to the South to go shoot anyway. North Carolina had like stopped shooting. There's some of the production, they had lost their incentive, and so we had to find a new place to shoot Vice Principals. And we were all of us were like, let's just go find another cool southern coastal town like Wilmington was. And we came down to check out Charleston and instantly like dug it here. But then when on our flight leaving, Bill Murray was on the flight, and and then he just sat there for like the hour and 15 minutes between here and Atlanta, telling us why Charleston would be the grand city to shoot in. And I think we're going to take his word for it. You know, it's like, why not? It works for him. Let's go there.
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm going to turn around now, knuckleheads.
Since he had tipped us off at this place, it felt out of respect. I should see if he wanted to participate at all, and he was kind enough to join us for that scene. Alien Covenant. We'll fly through it.
We cannot do that, Tennessee. You're a pilot. You know what the tolerances are.
Fuck the tolerances. It was awesome. I mean, that's the thing. I never really got into anything in the entertainment industry for acting. It was sort of always just wanting to write and make movies. And that's been really lucky. I never would have pursued acting on my own if somebody like Jody or David wouldn't have sort of had faith in me and put me in there. And it's given me this whole other education and like being on these sets of directors that I grew up admiring and seeing how they work with actors, how they shoot things. And so no matter what role I was going to be considered for Alien, I could have been someone who, you know, has their chest exploded in the first 30 seconds of it, and I would have done it. I mean, you know, to meet Ridley, first of all, was awesome, but then to get to go to Australia and like watch how he shoots an Alien movie, like after it was over, I was like, I feel like I'm good. I feel like I've seen everything I need to see in this business.
Holy shit. I got eyes on it. It's right fucking in front of me.
When I got there, talking to the other actors, they had already been on the movie for about 2 weeks or something. And, you know, everyone had stories like, oh, he only does like 1 or 2 takes. That's it. You know, and everyone was nervous about that. But I liked it. I thought it made it feel more like what we were doing in the Foot Fist Way when we didn't have playback and every cent counted, you know, with the film, that you had to come ready to deliver in like 1 or 2 takes and then you had to move on. I felt like the pace of that was more exciting. And it's not like he's cheapening on anything. I mean, he thinks about that way of shooting with how he shoots things, you know. So we would get into this spaceship and he would have 4 cameras like everywhere, like hidden behind a console built into here. He would take it into consideration with how he built the sets and even how it was lit. And you would look at the monitors and it wouldn't be like any of the shots were compromised. Like all 4 shots looked like shots from a Ridley Scott movie. And I was like, this is pretty awesome. I mean, you can make a movie this big and you can hit it at this breakneck speed. And if you plan, you don't have to compromise anything. It was cool to watch. The Righteous Gemstones.
See, there you go. Everybody in your line keeps getting water up the nose. You're dipping them back too far.
How about you do it your way and I'll do it mine?
How about you do it right? How about that, huh?
Okay.
Watch this. Get over here. Baptize your name in Jesus Christ. Smooth movements. You get that? You see how that worked?
I wanted to do a show maybe about the Dixie Mafia, or sort of like set something like in crime in like Memphis, kind of around the time that Elvis had died. It was a kind of an interesting time period in Memphis wrestling then, and it just seemed like a part of like pop culture history too, that there was something ripe there. So we had like put our heads against trying to figure that out for a while, and just never really like cracked the idea. We didn't have like a comedic way into it that would give you both, you know. It just, everything felt like we were suddenly making some like crime story that might have like maybe it was out of our depth a little bit. And so we had developed a lot of it but never really did anything with it. When I moved to Charleston and was sort of just trying to figure out like what was next, I would just kind of like drive around, like listen to music and just kind of drive around here and get to know the town and get to know the, you know, everything. And I just started to see that there were like so many churches here, and even on the radio stations there's a lot of like religious stations, and I don't know, it just got me thinking about church. And I hadn't been to church in a long time. I grew up going to church, and I was like, oh, I wonder what it's like now. Like, how is it different than when I was a kid?
We are introducing a streaming platform where you can access Christian programming 24/7, unlimited, whenever you need it. We call this service GODD, Gemstones on Digital Demand.
And then once I started to see these mega churches and how they operated, it all just sort of like clicked into place, where I'm like, oh, what if this operation was like run how we were imagining that Memphis Mafia stuff, and that this is sort of the front for it. And that instantly felt like it could give us a character that was in the vein of what we enjoyed doing with some of the earlier creations in TV, which is, you know, this character that's full of I don't know, you know, contradictory ideas that, you know, someone like, you know, Neil Gamby thinks that he's like, you know, this righteous man who's like lives by this moral code, and meanwhile he's like burning down the principal's house, you know. And the idea that Jesse Gemstone is like preaching the word but spending all this money and taking advantage of things and then not living the way that he says that he needs to. It just felt like it was typing into this sort of like human flaw that we had kind of had fun playing with before.
Did he just say bye, Felicia?
Yeah, what does that mean?
Bye, Felicia.
Jesse, you will never run this family. So bye, Felicia, to you, Jesse.
Who's Felicia?
You are.
No, you're Felicia.
Let's just all act like adults.
You're
yeah.
Felicia.
Yeah.
We can act like adults if he's Felicia, because I'm not fucking Felicia.
Felicia. With Eastbound, that was so centrally like plotted around Kenny. And then Vice Principals was a two-hander, was a buddy comedy. And this, I really wanted to just like focus on an ensemble. And that was sort of even the idea when we were thinking about it as being a crime family, the idea that you could have these different characters, everyone can have their own point of view. I think with comedies, it's really, like a lot of the comedies I loved growing up were ensembles, because you wouldn't have the same sense of humor with every character. You know, like every character or every comedian hired might have a certain type of riff or style that's a little bit different than others. And I felt like it makes comedies fun when you watch it. I like loved The Goonies as a kid. I mean, I just like was obsessed with it. But every single one of those kids would make you laugh in a totally different way, that they all were so well drawn. And I wanted to do something like that with the Gemstones. I wanted to have somebody like Edie or Walton or John Goodman or Tim Baltz or, you know, Tony Cavallero and Adam Devine, like all of them make me laugh in completely different ways. And it felt like putting them all together would just make something that hopefully would make everybody laugh. It's been fun to finally have a budget and like the time to pull stuff like that off. You know, like when we would do Eastbound, we would have, I think, like maybe 4.5 days, 5 days at most an episode. And Gemstones were at like 12 days an episode. So it just gives us a lot more time to sort of like play around and to push things. And yeah, it's been great. That's been a really fun aspect of this. And you know, part of what's been fun about making all these shows is that, you know, like I said, we bring them, we shoot it here, and a lot of the people that we work with are people we've worked with for decades now, and they're all super talented. And sometimes I like just to drop these sort of bigger pieces in their lap just to give them the ability to like, what would you do? How do we do a car chase scene when we only have a day to shoot it? You know, what are we going to do? What cars can we crash? And it's fun to give these department heads stuff that feels impossible, and then we're all high-fiving each other when we end up like finding some creative solution to figuring it out.